in Island Station. I lived here for 36 years here, and am part of the Island Station Neighborhood Board Vice Chair. Thank you for inviting us to attend this meeting.
Island Station. That's the one I was trying to think of earlier. Thank you, Charles. I live just south of you on River Road. Debbie.
So do I. Yeah. Okay.
Debbie Lipton.
Hi, I'm in the historic Milwaukie neighborhood. I'm the secretary on the board of the NDA, and I grew up in Milwaukie, graduated from Milwaukie High School, as did my parents. So I'm definitely a Milwaukie native. I moved all the way away into Portland when I ran away from home to go to Portland State, and recently moved back to Milwaukie about a year and a half ago. And I'm thrilled to be here again. It's very much home. It feels like coming home, and I'm very happy to be here. And I'm very much enjoying my neighborhood association.
That's great. Thank you, Debbie. Pam, I'll move on to you next.
Oh, I'm Denham. I've been here about 8.5 years in Milwaukie. Island Station, I'm the secretary and also the land use chair for the NDA.
Welcome, Pam. Susan, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Susanna Pai. I'm from the Lake Road NDA. I'm the treasurer. I moved from Hong Kong 40 years ago, and ever since I moved from Hong Kong to United States, I live in Milwaukie, and I love Milwaukie.
That is awesome. Susanna, can you say again which NDA you belong with?
Lake Road Neighborhood NDA.
Okay, awesome.
I'm the treasurer.
And how about Susan McCarty?
Susan McCarty. I live in Hector Campbell neighborhood. I've been here about 4 years, and I'm the land use chair of our NDA.
Welcome. Okay, Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. Rebecca Stavenjord. I use she, her pronouns. I've lived in Milwaukie off and on for about 7 cumulative years, but most recently in the Llewellyn neighborhood, and I serve as the chair for our NDA.
Awesome. Rich Recker.
Here, Rich Recker, historic Milwaukie neighborhood, and also sending regrets for our vice chair Val Hubbard, who wanted to be here but had something come up. I relocated here at age 3 in 1962 into a new home in the Hector Campbell area, and I'm a proud graduate of Hector Campbell Rao and Milwaukie High School, and enjoying working with a new team of folks at historic Milwaukie. I moved out of Hector Campbell after school, moved back to Hector Campbell, bought in as an adult, moved out to Ohio, Pennsylvania, found a new family, brought them back to Oregon, and moved back into the historic Milwaukie neighborhood. I forget what else we're supposed to talk about.
Wow. Well, that was quite the history. You might have the longest running history.
That's
we'll see. We'll see. We're not there yet.
That's a dubious honor. Muting.
Howie, would you like to go next?
Hey there, I'm Howie Oakes. I live in the Llewellyn neighborhood. I'm the treasurer and been here 15 years. I live on a Stanley right near Johnson Creek. And thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Lisa, would you like to go next? I think you'll wrap this up.
Hi, yeah, Lisa Gunyon-Ranker. I'm the Ardenwald Johnson Creek land use chair. I've lived in Ardenwald 20 plus years, kind of like Greg. Moved out here from the Midwest, and when I looked to buy a home, this was the place that I wanted to be.
Awesome. And Laura and Jason, do you want to introduce yourselves now?
Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Weigel. I'm the planning manager with the city of Milwaukee, and I'm so excited to be here. I know it's been a tough year, and I feel like I would have met all of you in person over this last year that I've been in Milwaukee. So at least I'm getting to see your faces on a screen, but I do hope someday we get to meet in person. And I've been at the city of Milwaukee for a year, but I've been in Oregon and in Portland for the last 20 years. So nice to meet you, and I look forward to working with you.
Hi, I'm Jason Wax. I'm the community engagement coordinator. I've actually worked for the city twice now. I worked for the city in the early 2000s for about 4 years, and then I moved to Seattle for a little while. Came back and worked in Beaverton for a little bit, and then just couldn't get enough of Milwaukee, so I came back to Milwaukee about 7 years ago, I think it is now. I live in the Woodstock neighborhood at the moment, so I'm right on the edge of the city, so I'm very close. Yeah, glad to be here. I did want to mention Sarah Smith, who didn't promote herself. She's in Hector Campbell and has been here for 22 years. And she also has been doing the Hector Campbell Community Garden for a really long time. And that's such an awesome thing. And yeah, just want to mention her so she's not left out of the conversation.
That's awesome. So by my count, I think we've got representation from every NDA and pretty good representation at that. So this is kind of the opportunity in the agenda. I'd love to hear from one individual of each neighborhood, maybe representing your NDA, if you will. Really would love to hear from you all in terms of what your NDA has been working on currently. If you want to somehow organize yourselves to be that one person to represent your NDA, would just love to hear what's most recent news information coming from your NDA. And how about we go in a little bit of an order here. If the Ardenwald Johnson Creek NDA might want to speak first.
Sure. So we have the Davis Graveyard. Everybody knows about that, hopefully. If you haven't heard about the Davis Graveyard, it's a family-friendly haunted yard display that's been, we were thinking about this when we got our community and neighbors involved. It's been going since 2000, early 2000. There are pictures of some of the things that we've had since 2005. We're like, wow, really, have we been involved that long? Like, yeah, we have. But it's a great event if people want to come by on the weekends. All the displays and lights and everything is usually running if it's not raining too much. Anyway, it's fun for family and kids, but we're not doing an open house this year. The only thing we are doing is a fundraiser for our house, which is this Saturday evening, which is a charity event.
Laura, what is our house?
Oh, our house, it's actually a place where people who have contracted HIV are housed and are taken care of and have help with their daily lives. So it's a very, very good charity.
Very cool. Thank you, Laura. Next, let's see. Hector Campbell.
I can talk about Hector Campbell. We had a big turnover in the officers of our NDA. So we've been making some changes, including trying to just get more neighborhood involvement instead of just having meetings. We're trying to think of ways to involve more people in the neighborhood and to have more events. So the first event we have coming up is the haunted walk through the haunted forest at Homewood Park, which will be on Halloween from 4 to 6. And we're just planning a walk through the forest and some treats and popcorn and just to kind of promote trick-or-treating in the neighborhood. At our last meeting, we discussed other events for the year. We're planning on probably like a concert and picnic next summer, a service day, and some other events just to get people involved and maybe some events where we can help neighbors do things in the yards, things like that. So we're just been brainstorming those kind of things.
Okay. How about Historic Milwaukie?
I would defer to either of our other representatives, but I won't. I'll go ahead and take reins here. I mentioned this earlier, but we had a wholesale change in our officer group too, and Jason worked the streets and came up with some great candidates, and we all came in together. I think a number of us prior to a natural cycle, and we before we accepted, we sat in a park 6+ feet away from each other, and we talked about whether or not we wanted to do this, and we all had one thing in common: we wanted to make a difference. We wanted to help downtown Milwaukee inch closer to realizing its full potential. And on that, it didn't make a difference who was chair. We just have kind of moved forward with that as our mission. And one of the things that it's hard not to miss is Historic Milwaukie is different. It's the makeup of it is different. The pressures are different. The energy is different. And that's one of the things that we've tried to wrap our arms around. Among the things we've tried to focus on is improved collaboration from the stakeholders and stakeholder groups and advocates, particularly for downtown Milwaukee. And I would punctuate in a quick promo for our next monthly meeting. Will include kind of a working discussion and forum of the Downtown Business Association, First Friday, Celebrate Milwaukee, and kind of talking openly about what are the unique challenges of historic Milwaukee and how can we, with limited resources and a lot of pressure, work better together, thinking even as deeply as about what's the makeup of those groups. How are we structured? How can we legitimately get more out of less? And so that is a major component part of our November NDA meeting. And as we've tried to do before, we've tried to open that up and encourage people from other neighborhoods to actively participate, particularly when the subject matter overlaps. It's a broader Milwaukee theme that focuses on kind of downtown as the living room, as a place where everybody has a stake in what's happening there. So a couple other themes that I'll talk about just briefly. Debbie took the initiative and we stole Adopt Main Street from Nerds to Go. And Debbie's done a great job of remobilizing and organizing and starting to create the organic Adopt One Block framework in addition to our kind of periodic wholesale Main Street cleanups. The next one I believe is mid-November. Nod, thank you, Debbie. And we'll put more information out on that. Another example, which is a more recent thing, is thinking about how do we come underneath our local neighbors and partners. And Milwaukee High School recently had the ribbon cutting, which was delayed over a year because of pandemic. And we worked with alumni groups and downtown business to really take what is a conventional homecoming celebration and create more energy and more attendance and participation under that, so that the kids and staff and the folks at the district felt how deeply they were supported. And we're proud of adding energy to that. And I think that is a good signature for what we do, not necessarily initiating, but adding energy and value to what else is going on. I want to give a shout out to Greg. He's been a great partner for us with the museum and thinking about how do we create downtown as also a classroom for everybody to learn more about our city and its history. And his 10 sign tour that was featured at Carefree Car Free and again at Homecoming is just, I think, a sliver of the potential of using our community for a lot of different purposes and connecting people in a meaningful way that builds relationships that leads to strength. So, and I have another half hour. Is that right? Okay, I'm off. Sorry. Thank
Should
you.
we do an intermission?
Yeah, sorry.
No, that was really helpful. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate that. Let's head over then to Island Station.
This is Charles. I'm going to ask Pam to maybe fill in if I missed something that's happening that we're talking about. Everybody's been through COVID, and we're looking forward to meeting in person again. So we've been talking about and discussing our next gathering, and we kind of lost a weather window now for a picnic, but we have definitely sights on the next time we can maybe meet in person in either the Grange or another location where we can actually get together and meet. We had a change in our board recently and adjusted the board. So we're adjusting to each other right now. Our focus is usually and always on safety in the neighborhood. There was a major paving that was completed in the neighborhood, which is River Road and 22nd River Road going down the hill. And we're evaluating that to make sure that that's going to work for us. It's a long time coming with some of the things that we've been doing over the last, I'm going to say 15 years in terms of discussing the different things that need to be done there for safety, for walking to school. So that's a real positive. I'm excited about, getting the herd immunity. Let's hope it comes. Touch wood this year before Christmas. It's a nice Christmas present that perhaps we can get into a more face-to-face type meeting and then move forward with an exciting year to come. The parks are always a focus to us, both the Kellogg wastewater treatment plant and area and park, and the other Elk Rock Island and Spring Parks are our focuses for our efforts and work parties. So that's what we're looking at. Pam?
I think you covered it all. We're adjusting to the new board, and as always, trying to recruit new members, but it's a struggle, as all of you guys must know. We also have Kronberg Park, so we're glad that's up and running, and it's really nice to be able to cross the street and get downtown without having to go all the way down the highway. But that's about all I can think of at the moment. We have no work parties or anything planned for Spring Park or Elk Rock at this point in time with the weather.
Okay, thanks, Pam. Thank you, Charles. How about anyone from Lake Road?
I guess I'm the only one on, on Lake Road. It's kind of embarrassing. We are really excited this year because we got this funding for our park that we adopted 7 or 8 years ago, the Bowman and Bree Park. So we accidentally planted some trees and before the funding, so we now need to figure out how to get them out or not to get them out. So we're working with the NCPRD and the city to help us out to figure out all the mess we're making. And then in the meantime, but it's fun, we're learning, we make mistakes, we're learning, we get frustrated, getting jumpy at each other. But that's part of the learning process, and so that's excitement. So, but we're really excited to get the funding because eventually within 2 years, we'll probably have this really beautiful park for the neighborhood, and so that's really exciting. And we are working into doing a work plan. I just mentioned that to my leadership team and said that, hey, we need to talk about what we need to do with the grant fund because we don't want to wait till the last minute and say, oops, we're doing nothing, as usual. So we need to really work on be more proactive. So we would not get into more frustration and get into more last minute rush, type of thing. So we're learning, So that's our plan right now.
Okay. Let's move on to Llewellyn.
I can start and then Howie, will you help me out? So Llewellyn is probably best known for music in the parks and winter solstice celebrations, and those have been on hold as we've all been dealing with the pandemic. but we have been busy otherwise. We've been able to grant some really amazing small grants out into the community, supporting organizations and schools that are connected all across Milwaukee. We were able to get some volunteers together for a spring cleanup. So we did a road and streets cleanup this spring. We participated in the Car-Free, Carefree Sundays event at Bal Michelle Park. And it was really nice to see some neighbors from a safe social distance. We had a little break over the summer with our meetings, but we've resumed those starting in September. And we also just last week had a little meeting forum around the homeless service system. And so really kind of hearing a little bit more about how Clackamas County is doing work around the supportive housing services measure through Metro and what that looks like for services and programs connected with Milwaukee. And then over the last 4 months or so, we've had a small but dedicated crew working on a traffic safety survey. So you may have seen some of our posts throughout neighborhood social media. So that safety survey went out live August and September, and we were able to get about 157 responses across our neighborhood. Most of them came from Llewellyn. We had some folks that weren't in the neighborhood, but used the streets for work or for, visiting friends and family. So that was really great, more like better turnout than we were anticipating. And then a really wonderful added bonus of that work was that we had about 30 businesses and organizations that worked with us to get brochures with the survey information and the link featured in their either their business or at churches and out through their mailing lists and things like that. So it was really a good opportunity to not only hear what neighbors had to say about traffic safety in the community, but it was also kind of nice to build those relationships with more businesses and organizations. Howie, I'm sure that I've left some things out.
No, that was pretty comprehensive. I think for our neighborhood, definitely we're very much looking forward to getting back to being able to have concerts again, and we really enjoy the events. Yeah, I think in the interim, the traffic safety study or the survey, I really think we're really hoping that's going to bring some attention, especially with the TSP, and hats off to the folks in the neighborhood who worked on that. And I definitely, if you want to contact Rebecca about having the presentation that we had last week from Clackamas County and Milwaukee around homeless services, I thought it was great, and it definitely answered a lot of questions for me, and it was a really good session there. So if you're looking for for something for an NDA meeting, I would really suggest that. I thought it was a great presentation.
I can put our email in the chat if anyone would like to share contacts to replicate that. Thanks.
That's great. And that's another really good reason for us all to get together, is to make sure you know those familiar faces, you have contact information, and you can share resources. I think this is now the time in the agenda when we kind of hand it back over to staff and Laura to give us kind of that 5-year look ahead, work plan for what it is that the Planning Commission and the city are really taking on. And then we hope to hear some thoughts from you all.
All right. Well, I think most of you are probably aware of the comprehensive plan process that went on a few years ago. And so right now we've been out in the community and working with Planning Commission and visiting a lot of your neighborhood associations and talking about the implementation of the comp plan regarding housing, trees, and parking. And so that's in the hearing process right now with the Planning Commission, and then it goes to City Council. And so that's kind of what we're wrapping up for the comprehensive plan, the first first phase. And then next coming is the transportation system plan that Howie actually mentioned. We are kicking off that project here this spring. The great news is that we were hoping to kick it off a little bit earlier, but we were lucky enough to get a $250,000 grant from Oregon Department of Transportation. So that's great. It just slows down our process a little bit, but we'll be reaching out to everybody. We'll put together a steering committee and making sure that we have lots of representation across the city. And so we'll be reaching out back to you folks to look for people to participate in that. And that's like a 2-year process. So it's a pretty long process. So it's a big project for the city. Then we're also updating our housing needs analysis, kind of looking at what types of housing we have the city and what our population forecast is for the next 20 years, and trying to understand where we might have gaps in the types of housing that we need for folks to live in over the next 20 years. So we're going to do that. And we're also next out of that is then it's called a housing production strategy that is right after that, where we look at trying to find out, develop ways to actually get that housing built. And so the housing needs analysis and the housing production strategy are required by the state, and we're on a timeline with that. The good news is that we also got a grant to do both of those things. So we got $127,000 to do both of those projects. And again, we'll be reaching out to you folks to look for some assistance and be engaging with the community on a regular basis throughout both of those projects. And then we also there's a lot of activity going on at a state level that's driving a lot of the work that we're doing. So there's also this other big thing that's coming out of the legislature is climate friendly and equitable communities rulemaking. And so there's going to be some work that we're going to do around that, probably focused mostly on the downtown area. And the rules are being made now, so I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but we'll be coming out to work with you folks over the next, I don't know, all of these 3 projects are pretty big over the next 2 years, I would say. So those things are kind of at the top of my list. And then long term, we also have the Neighborhood Hubs project. We also have looking at natural resources in the city. We look at flood protection. We look at our Parks and Recreation Zone. We look at the Willamette River Greenway. It's all basically driven by what came out of the visioning process that was done back in 2017 with the community, in which the council adopted. And then we did the comprehensive plan. So we set all the goals and policies with all the outreach with the community. And so all of these projects that we're working on for the next 8 years come directly from the visioning and the comprehensive plan update. So that kind of like set the work plan for us for the next 8 years. So we'll be implementing all of the comprehensive plan throughout all these different projects. And it's a big plan, and it's meant to take place over about 20 years. And so I imagine it'll probably take us at least 8 to get all the bits and pieces worked through, and then we'll continue to work through it and make it better as we go along. So that's kind of the big picture overview. And I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
So is there anyone who'd like to ask any questions about the work plan? Yeah, Pam, go ahead.
So where can we find on the website something that has all of this together, so we don't have to go for, excuse me, climate friendly over here and housing needs analysis over there? Is there is there one page that has links from there?
There is not, because a lot of the projects haven't actually started, but that is a very good idea to kind of be able to house all of those things and at least kind of give a little bit of information about what's coming. So that is something that I can take away from this meeting and work on for everybody. That's a great idea, Pam. So sorry it doesn't exist yet, but we can make that happen.
Thank you, because that website search engine is not the most intelligent.
No, it is not. And I will tell you a little trick. You know what I do is I go to Google and I Google Milwaukie Transportation System Plan, and then you'll find it, but you won't find it through our own search function.
No,
so
I have that downloaded already.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyone else? Yeah, Rich.
Are we in item B, 4B? Because I had some things there, but I think they fit your question, Laura.
Okay.
Not yet, but that.
Okay,
you
I'll
can
wait.
Go ahead. No,
I'll
no,
wait.
go. If
Okay.
you have anything specific, Rich, to the work plan itself that Laura could answer.
I think it relates to where she left off.
Okay.
One of my questions is about this 8 to 20 year timeline that you've talked about. And I'm just wondering aloud, and maybe it does lead into the next topic, of what do you do when you see some rhythms or some trends that aren't cooperating with our timeline to get those planning processes done? We've had a pandemic since 2017, and we've learned a lot. And particularly as our team has had to field development proposals, there's a sense that they're getting in under the wire, like getting proposals in before some of the updates and new plans and things that will put us better in line with the vision document you have go into effect. And I don't have any data to defend that, but it seems like a risk.
Well,
okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that there's always going to be that in planning, is that some things get ahead of other things and it's always trying to catch up. And that's just kind of the way it works, because it's so dynamic and we have so many things at play, and we only, we have to prioritize, and it's not even us that prioritizes, really, it's the city council kind of prioritizes what the work is going to be. And so when we started the comprehensive plan, the idea was to get the comprehensive plan done and then go through and do all of these other pieces of the plan. And so we try to be nimble and adjust accordingly along the way, but we also have all of these big projects that have to get done within certain timeframes. So it's kind of like be nimble, but then also we have to get all of these things done. And then we also have to go with council priorities, and then things bubble up. So we do our best all of the time to juggle all of the things and try to get them in alignment as best as we can. It's not perfect. It can be a little messy, but I think that at the end of the day, in the long run, we just have to keep trying as best as we can and always going back to those comprehensive plan goals and policies that were acknowledged and supported by the community. And that's what we're striving to do with all the work that we're doing. So I know it's not a great answer, but it's not a perfect process. So we're just always juggling it all.
And one of the things that I would say, Rich, is that if ever you or any one of your neighborhood counterparts, anybody in the NDA here is feeling as though that might be the case and you have a concern, there's always an opportunity at any of the planning commission meetings for you to attend. And at the beginning of the agenda, we have the opportunity for folks who'd like to address an item that's not on the agenda to talk. And that would be an opportunity, or reaching out to Laura or myself directly and communicating that. I want to make sure that everybody here feels plugged into any of those avenues for reaching out, that you don't feel as though, your frustration isn't being heard, if it is frustration.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. And I want to thank the people that I've already reached out to, and also call out Allison, who was with us during my tenure. And people were very patient helping us come along in our understanding and raise some issues that maybe either we don't understand or need to get a little bit of emphasis underneath them. I do want to add a corollary to my point, and I appreciate your response, Laura. But what about nimbleness in terms of being in line and shovel ready for resources? We've got a Build Back Better Act that is waving a couple $1 trillion in our face. And are we going to do ourselves a service to be super nimble and promote ourselves as being as ready or more ready than others that might be competing for resources? I know we have an equity initiative, and I know there's money attached to that, both state and federal right now. I guess I'm still addressing that nimbleness question, but also in a different context, which is the old guy can reflect that resources don't always flow, and they don't flow in the levels that we're seeing right now for all good reasons. I just want to make sure Milwaukee's ready. and that we're competitive and in a position to take advantage of resources when they flow and use it to make the kinds of changes that we want to make over time. When 5-6 years down the road, those resources may not be flowing as freely.
Yep, and those are good points. It's not something that I specifically deal with in the planning department. That's kind of not in my wheelhouse, but it is in the wheelhouse of our community development department and our city manager's office. And so maybe there's at some point when, because I don't know exactly what's going on with that particular funding opportunity, but I know that our city manager and the community development or assistant city manager would know more about that. And I'm sure I could have some of those questions answered for you if I can get back to you.
Of course.
Yep.
Thanks for fielding that.
Yep.
Anyone else? Any questions about Lisa?
Yeah.
Lisa, you're on mute. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. My question kind of is similar to Pam's, but it relates more to projects from planning and development. And it's kind of, if there was a way to have a central area as projects develop. I know if you don't know the name of the project or remember its numbers, you can't find it. And it just goes into, so the only way I hear about stuff is if I happen to be listening to a planning commission meeting and I hear them say, oh, this project, you know, it was, you know, the developer walked away, but now we've got a new developer and it's going to start at the end of October. I wouldn't know that. So I don't know, is there a way, and I realize this is time and money to get that kind of information, but I don't know if there's a way to like have that in one spot so you can kind of have a running
Almost like if you had
tally
a hyperlinked map or something where you
Yeah.
like, I knew it's on this corner of this street,
Yeah.
and then you could click on that and it would go to the
Oh, I
packet.
would love to have that, Lauren.
So-
but we don't have that yet.
No, we
but that's a
started
dream.
doing something like that in our neighborhood. But again, I don't have all the information to be able to tell them how to do that because I don't have all the updates. So I'm like, well, I want to make sure everybody knows what's going on because otherwise I get a bunch of emails. But if I don't know it, I can't help. So
Yep. I know that is a bit of a challenge. We have all the information is on our website, but it's not always easy to navigate to, right? And so I understand that desire to make it more user friendly, something that you can access. I wish the same thing for myself oftentimes, that it was easier to access. And so I think that that's something that we have to continue as a city to try to figure out how to build that into our system. Our system just doesn't do it yet because we have the pre-application conference pages, and that actually came out of a conversation I know that you all had a couple of years ago. So we have that, and yes, the numbers are weird. So I think that's an interesting point, Lisa, because maybe there can be the number for the purposes of tracking, but maybe we could also give it the simple name.
or, and this was just a thought, for each neighborhood where these projects are, put like some kind of initials for that neighborhood so the neighborhood can find it.
Yep, I think
Just
that's
a thought.
No, that's a great idea. I love that idea. And we could do that for the pre-application conferences. And we could also do that for the development review projects that are coming through, because there's also obviously the page for that. That's a great idea. That's a simple fix in the interim until we can get you a pretty map that links. I like that idea. And then I just wanted to say one last thing, that the Monroe apartments that you're talking about that got we were still, that was all quiet and we didn't know if or when that was going to happen. So we weren't talking about that until so that was a weird one but we're just happy that it's getting built, but it was just an awkward time of not understanding exactly what was going to happen. So that was just the nature of that beast in that case.
Yeah. Well, but anyway. Thank you.
But great ideas. And I can definitely make those happen super easily as a placeholder until we can get it a little bit better streamlined.
Okay.
Lauren, is it right to say that someone in-house controls the website and can
Yes.
We manage and control it. Okay. That's good to know.
Yes.
Pam, you've been patient.
I was just gonna piggyback on what Lisa said, because I was looking up development that was planned for our neighborhood in Island Station called Elcroft Estates. So I endeavored to go through the website and look and look and look and look because I saw a sign on the property saying it was for sale again. And so I thought, well, I want to find out what's happening with this development. So I couldn't find anything on the website, and I Googled it too. And then I went through about 4 different, excuse me, real estate finders, RMLS and all that, to find out what was going on, and I couldn't. So it is very frustrating because you can't find things on that.
In that case, yeah, I think if a property were just being sold, that wouldn't necessarily be on the city's website because that's not something that we really have anything to do with.
Well, it was an approved development that went through a year and a half of
Okay.
appeals and everything else. And so I was
Yeah,
hoping to
of
see
course.
what happened, because suddenly it's got a different name on it on the street. And I thought,
Right.
so what happened,
Okay, so that's something to think about. So it's almost like we have the current projects, we have the pre-application meetings, we have the things that are in development review, and then we also have past approved projects page possibly that kind of has any outstanding information or new information that we might be able to share.
Yes,
So,
that'd be
okay.
fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, got it. Yep. Okay.
Well, I want to kind of get us rolling into the next section. I really think that we're probably a good way into this. We're moving into kind of section 4 here, which is our roundtable discussion. And looking at the time here, it's 7:24, so we got a little over a half hour if we are going to. But I know, Susanna, we are going to. It seems as though we may be leaving you behind at some point here, so I want to make sure you get a chance to discuss any items that you had. But the first item in the roundtable, and this is really just to get as much feedback from you all as we can, is a discussion about barriers. So we were hearing some barriers about the way you're sourcing and finding or not finding information easily on our website, but a discussion about any barriers to providing feedback that you all are aware of. And specifically barriers to providing feedback to the Planning Commission on land use applications. So obviously finding those packets is a big piece of it. But if anyone wants to start this one off, what are some of the barriers you're experiencing? And I see Pam with your hand raised.
Oh, I'm still on. Okay. So a few months back, we had an issue where only one person on the land use committee was notified, and they didn't realize they were the only person. So they didn't say anything to anybody else because they thought everybody got the information, but the fact was we didn't. And so I don't know how that fell through the cracks, and it did get rectified, I think, but I hope so. Makes me wonder if that could happen again. So is the plan to normally notify the entire land use committee or just one person?
Laura, can you help with that?
Yeah, sorry. And if it's something fell through the cracks, I just want to apologize. We have also been in a major transition on our team. We had, I think at the beginning of the summer, we had 13 people between community development and planning, and now we have 5. So it's been a big shift. So we've had a lot of transition. So if anything fell through the cracks, I sincerely apologize for that, because I do think it does go out, and I'll confirm this because I'm still new to all the process, but I do think it goes out to the board members on the NDA, but I will clarify that, Pam, and get back to you and just to ensure, because if what you're asking is that it would go out to all of the members of the neighborhood association. No.
Everybody on the land use committee.
Land use committee.
And board.
Okay. Land use committee and board. Okay. I will verify that is indeed that's what's supposed to be happening. If it's not, then I think we can remedy that. Okay.
I wonder, Pam, if those individuals change names enough across all NDAs.
Hey, Lauren, your phone is muted. There you go.
There we go. Sorry about that. I wonder, Pam, if names change enough across NDAs, if it would be more helpful to implicate the chair, maybe the co-chair of an NDA and the land use representative, just in terms of managing names and managing kind of a list of people.
Sure, whatever works, as long as land use chair would be notified and then the board members. Then they could dispense it or disperse it as needed.
Just to chime in for a quick second, when I served as chair of a neighborhood association for a number of years, and we actually set up just a generic, we called it a kind of a service account. So it was, land use at our neighborhoodassociation.com. And then we set it up to auto forward on our end onto all the appropriate people. So then the city just had to send it to that email address and it routed out to everybody. So that might also be something to explore.
This is Charles. I don't know if Jason Wax, you're on still, but it seems like that you're always collecting the most up-to-date information about who's who in our neighborhood. Is that, could that be linked to this problem as a solution?
Yeah, so I mean, I do check periodically. Sometimes the folks change and, I'm not aware of it. So I will say, like, make sure that, definitely make sure you're letting me know, because I'm the one that updates what's called Onboard. It's our database of contacts, and that's what the planning department uses. Another thing that happens sometimes is some of the neighborhoods don't identify a chair always. Because we have land use committees that are all the way from like one individual in some neighborhoods at times to like 5. And sometimes a chair isn't identified. And so in those cases, I believe the planning department will send it to everyone, but sometimes there is a chair identified. And so then, sometimes it might only go to the chair. So I guess, Laura, maybe we can just talk about, what's the best practice. Maybe the best thing is to just send it to everyone just to make sure, that it's distributed.
Well, yeah, and we could talk about this a little bit because I do love this idea that Jacob talked about, because then there's one email address, and then it's the neighborhood association kind of has to manage who that gets distributed to. But then we always know that we're sending it to the one place that we know it's going to get distributed. Since there is so much changeover, that might be a way to go. But we should think about that and maybe bring that idea back, or just send out an email to you folks and just say, here's what we're thinking. Does this kind of fulfill the need?
I like
We
the
do the
idea
same thing
too,
at the Oak Grove
Laura.
Community Council.
Joseph, say that again. I'm sorry.
We do the same thing at the Oak Grove Community Council. We have a contact at oakgrovecpo.org email address, and that's on file with the county. It's actually on file with the city of Milwaukee for when we need to be notified of things that are going on near the border. It's a good way to handle it. I appreciate Jacob mentioning it, because it's been really effective for fanning out communications across multiple volunteers, and then whoever's available first to pick it up and communicate it out more broadly, or start to whatever we need to do with it, our workflow. It's really effective. And you can also do it for free with Google Groups. And it'll keep a record of it on Google Group, and you can share that with your board. You can share it with your whole NDA if you want to, and you'll see the whole record of emails that the city has sent to the NDA on that Google Groups page. So that's really cool. That's been really helpful for us in the community council as well, or in Oak Grove.
So if I may add to this discussion too, because I learned my computer skills in the early 90s, and I don't know how to do anything except for those things. So if you could please send instructions, like what is a Google group? How does a Google group work? And then how do you auto forward an email? It may seem easy to some. I have no idea how to do it, and I'm sure some of us don't know how to do it. So if that is the plan, then send along some instructions, and we can all learn something that day as well.
Jason and I can work
That's
on
a great idea.
something.
I'd be happy to contribute to that, because I have experience actually doing this thing specifically with the free Google groups. So I'd be happy to contribute to that, Laura.
Thank you.
Other barriers that folks are feeling in terms of giving feedback to the commission, or just generally things? Laura, Lisa, sorry, Lisa.
Yeah, I will just say what everybody, it's the elephant in the room, and it's time. Everybody runs out of time. There's not enough of it. And I think we're all guilty of that in all facets of life. And that's just one of the things that happens. If you have too many competing things going on, then something has to drop, and you just can't get to it. So that's part of one of the barriers, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, like Lisa, I think commissioners, we feel that too. And one of the things that I'm happy to see kind of moving forward in discussion is continuing this opportunity to have a hybrid meetings where we have both in-person opportunities, but also keeping on the Zoom element for future meetings. So we're working through that, but in terms of saving you time, it gives you the opportunity for community members the opportunity to participate in planning commission to the building and sit and wait for your time on the agenda. So hopefully that's one thing. Debbie?
Yeah, one of the things that we've talked about as a pretty much completely new NDA board, one of our barriers is that we have a real lack of experience with land use matters. And so even trying to read the documents is like, are you kidding me? I have no idea how to look at this. And we feel extremely, Greg came to one of our meetings for another reason, and but was very helpful in talking with us about this. But we feel very responsible, because that's one of our purposes, is to represent our neighborhood for, and to be there to give feedback, but we don't know how to, frankly. So that's a barrier.
Well, if I could respond to that, I think that's a really useful insight, because I think that land use is really complicated for a lot of people. I mean, it's complicated for me, and I've been doing it for 15 years. No one's going to tell you it's not complicated. So I think that it's a really good idea to recognize that, and possibly kind of from the planning department's perspective, we could put together some sort of like a presentation / workshop and offer that to the NDAs. It's kind of this basic of land use 101. What is the process? What does it look like? What are the different types of applications? When can the NDA get involved? We could absolutely do that. I mean, we do that. We do that for new employees in our own departments sometimes, so that they can understand what land use is. So I would be happy to take on that task. I can't tell you that I'm going to get to it tomorrow, but I can tell you that I can start working on that, and potentially maybe sometime. I'm down staff as well, so it's hopefully sometime in the first quarter of the next year, we could come back out and offer that to all of the NDAs. I think that's a great idea.
Laura, it's almost like the 101 that you provide to planning commission. Myself, as an architect, I didn't have a whole lot of experience in the land use world, so it was new to me. And the 101 guidebooks that you provided, or links rather, are really helpful. And then the other thing that I would say, and planning commission chime in here, but regardless of the amount of experience that you feel you have, hearing your perspective is still really critical, because we know and can understand better how to funnel that information and that kind of feedback in the right way, in terms of how we are, in terms of the hearings that we're having presented in front of us, and the presentation and the feedback that we're providing to the teams. So even if you feel like it's not the most educated way to say it, or maybe not even accurate, or whatever it might be, it's important to still voice that, because it does influence the outcome. Gary, looks like you've got your Zoom hand raised.
Thank you. Yes, I'm going to go along with what Debbie said, in that recently we had a land use issue we were looking at that was over 478 pages of information. I had worked on it earlier, but not in the last few months. And so I missed a big point in the change. And so I made an objection that was really not valid anymore. And it would have been nice if we would have had a 3 to 5 pages of information about the general thing, hitting all the topics, and or had somebody from Planning Commission come out to our Zoom meeting and talk about it for 10, 15 minutes in advance. So we would have had a little more up to speed, so we could have sorted through the pages. And if you do a write-up on it, a short story, 3 to 5 pages, then you can put pinpoints to go to other parts of the 478 pages to figure out in more detail what's going on, because it was just plain overwhelming of information, and things had changed. And so, yeah, if we can get a better understanding somehow at the beginning, rather than trying to sort through all of that, it'd be a big help.
I understand your point, and it's a valid point. It's a little complicated because of the way the development kind of process works. And we don't have kind of that executive summary built into the requirements when you do a land use proposal. And Planning Commission actually can't come and talk to you about proposals because they should not be having those conversations before a public hearing. And so it's really kind of tricky, and there's a very small time window that you're allowed to review a development application. We have certain points that we have to do based on state statutes. So I understand what your concern is, and I do completely get it. I'm not exactly sure that I have a great solution for that off the top of my head, but is something that we could continue to think about.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Gary, just to chime in as well, as the opportunity in terms of, as Lauren was saying, for coming and presenting thoughts or concerns, however well researched or articulate they might be. But city staff, planning staff, kind of present a summary package as part of what comes up to kind of Planning Commission. So, in many ways we get maybe not a 3 to 5 page memo, might be more of a 10 to 20 page memo that kind of lays out the scope of the application, lays out kind of the staff recommendation, and lays out some of those key decision points. And I think that was also one of the things, Debbie, that I also want to just flag for you and others to kind of think about. And in I'd say, 95% of the cases, Planning Commission just doesn't get to choose what we kind of want to do, but, we're grounded in these kind of approval criteria. And sometimes those approval criteria can be a little qualitative, and sometimes they're not. But I think in terms of, if there's a proposal that you're happy with or unhappy with, really staying focused on how the application is meeting or is not meeting or could meet better those approval criteria. I think those are the things that we are most interested in. And, I'll say, as a former community advocate who's been in your shoes before, like, those are the things you need to get laser focused on, because that's where you win, or that's kind of where you can win or lose on what it is you're advocating for.
Thank you, Jacob. I underscore everything that Jacob just said. Susan, I'd like to get to you, and then we're going to move on to our next question after you've had a chance. Go ahead.
One of the things we've talked about doing in Hector Campbell is somehow, we haven't sorted it all out yet, is some surveys in our neighborhood about skills that people have and are willing to share. And now I'm thinking that this is an opportunity where we might identify people who maybe have worked in land use or have some experience doing these things, and then possibly reach out to them and say, hey, you don't necessarily have to be on the NDA or come to every meeting, but you can be part of the land use committee and be involved when we need your assistance, or maybe this is just a kind of a focused way that you'd like to be involved. So maybe we can identify more people in our neighborhood that do have some kind of experience that can assist in these matters.
This feels like a great segue to our next question, which is about Engage Milwaukie. Joseph, would you like to take us through the second question? And I think, Susan, there might be some opportunities here.
Yeah, our next question is that we'd like to discuss general topics and code questions. And so are there any general topic or code questions that are not related to a specific land use project or application that you'd like to discuss with the Planning Commission?
Joseph, do you mind if we skip to the Engage Milwaukie piece? Because I think, sorry, it is the third question on the list.
Okay, yeah,
and Laura,
we were
Laura, if you're
alternating.
ready to. Sorry, can we talk about Engage Milwaukie? Because it is a way to kind of survey, get responses back, and use an online platform to get those kind of questions answered. Laura, you're on mute.
Sorry, Lauren, what did you want me to do? I apologize. Did you
No,
want me
sorry.
to pull
So
up
then,
website?
yeah. So the next question is, how many of you have used the Engage Milwaukie platform? Maybe a show of hands if you have. Great. So there's, okay, Susan, so you know exactly what we're talking about here. So the planning department uses Engage Milwaukie to conduct online open houses and collect surveys responses. So we're looking to understand how, first of all, if you have any comments or reflections about the Engage Milwaukie platform itself, and how we can encourage more NDA users to take advantage of this online survey opportunity. Anybody have any general thoughts about the platform? Susan, you've had experience using it. What can you tell us what your experience was?
I guess just since you brought it up, I'm thinking, yeah, I've answered some of these things, just that they've come into my email and I've gone in and answered them. I haven't used it as part of the NDA. I haven't, I didn't realize that it was something that we could be using. I think there was something about the Home Avenue repaving, and I remember going in and answering some questions about that. That's the experience I've had with it so far.
Jason or Laura, I wonder if one of you might provide just like a high level review of Engage Milwaukie and how folks can utilize it.
I can do that, sure. So Engage Milwaukie came about really as the city had engagement goals. We had actually city council goals related to engagement for a couple of years. And one of those goals was to, find new ways to engage with folks, but also realize and figure out who we were engaging with. So, one of the ways we're doing that is collecting some demographic information for folks who are using the site. We have about 700 registered users at this point. I mean, it grows pretty much daily. And so really planning was the first to put a major project on there about 1.5 years ago when we started to do this, to use the platform. It's called, it's a company called Bang the Table that does these sites. They're fairly common kind of across the country, and actually in other countries. They're really big in like Australia and some other countries that do a lot of community engagement in interesting ways. I think what's been challenging for planning is it is very dense material. And so, I think that, overall, we've done a pretty good job of putting it on there and getting a lot of good feedback that continues to come in. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those tools that I think we're going to use over time for lots of different city projects. It's pretty dynamic, way more dynamic than our website. In terms of how you can, there's lots of different tools on there for engaging with folks. So, I definitely encourage anyone to get on there, become a registered user. And one of the great things about it is once you're registered, we can have an ongoing conversation when new projects are added. So, you might get on there because you're interested in Home Avenue. But now that you've engaged on it, we can also let you know when other projects come up that you also might be interested in over time. So we're not constantly sort of reinventing who it is that we're engaging with. And on top of that, we have a really good idea of who we're engaging with so that we can start to meet some of our equity goals and know that, if we're missing certain populations, that just don't, it just doesn't align with the demographics that we know about and who lives in the city, we can start to maybe try to do some new targeted ways to reach some of those folks. So I hope that covers, you know, an overview.
Jason,
yeah.
Is there an opportunity for NDAs to create their own surveys as well and have maybe more localized or private kind of select groups that they're, you know, the conversation that Susan was just having around just knowing, surveying their neighborhood and knowing what skills folks have. If there's someone who's just really great with land use, would be great to connect with, for example.
Yeah, there's a possibility. I mean, I think we have to always weigh kind of how much is on there, and you know, in terms of how many projects are being promoted. There's no way for me to provide access to anyone outside the city. It's also, you know, staff driven. We only have a certain number of staff members according to our subscription to the Bang the Table site that can utilize it. So, you know, we can talk about that. There's probably ways to do that. There's not really good ways to target necessarily. You know, it would be open to anyone that wanted to engage with it. But yeah, I mean, there's a possibility. We also can use, you know, SurveyMonkey. The city has a SurveyMonkey account. You know, there's other tools to do simple surveys. What's really dynamic about this site isn't necessarily the survey tool, even though that is one of the functions. The dynamic part of it is that you can get sort of back and forth conversational kind of stuff as well. So, yeah.
So, I mean, the question is then, oh, I'm sorry, Robert, do you want to say something?
I sure do. I think this is a really interesting discussion, is that, you know, we have a lot of need to reach out to people to get their opinions and everything like that. That's why I was particularly interested in Rebecca's comment about their traffic survey that they did, you know, and they kind of did that for all kinds of good reasons. They sort of did it, I suspect, probably within their own little bubble and that kind of thing. But I would love to see that information. I think the city would benefit from that by virtually every NDA doing something like that as we go into the TSP in the coming years. And so I really don't care whether it's Engage Milwaukie or SurveyMonkey, but let's try to just help people along so that they're not starting from ground zero trying to figure out how to engage beyond their meetings. And I think this is a good discussion, and I'm always looking for a way to bring more views in.
Greg?
Yeah, just by a quick look at the city website, I don't see anything that says click here for Engage Milwaukie. And I think the only way that I ever engage on it is when I get an email. And so I'm trying to think how I actually look at it, or if I click on like the comprehensive plan slide, it might take me there. But yeah, maybe a headline, you know, maybe at the top where it says business, community, neighborhood, you know, Engage Milwaukie, a quick link to that, if that works at all, might be a little bit more helpful. And I know that Engage Milwaukie is a relatively new thing, and I think it's working. And the more that the NDA leaders can maybe copy that information and put it on their own Facebook or Twitter feeds for their own NDAs to spread it out, because maybe more people look at that in their news feed than they do for the city one. So just a suggestion for the leaders. And I think Rich has had his arm might be falling off because he's been having his hand raised for an hour.
Rich, I apologize for that. It must be the. Go
No,
ahead, Rich.
it's okay. Part of it is I was putting it up and then I really hadn't formed a question and then I put it up again. But I think what I just want to say out loud is I think, and I appreciate you guys acknowledging, Jason and others, that you're still kind of working through this technology. And how you measure that seems really critical. And I've done some work with North Clackamas Schools as a district that covers a wide geographic area and a diverse area. They've also done kind of these tools that make it easy to do community engagement. And I think one of the things that we may lose, and I think it's been a blessing during pandemic, but let's make sure we don't lose that human relational contact that happens in our specific neighborhood, and transfer the whole idea of community engagement to web-based communication platforms and staff, because then something gets lost there. There's a qualitative, community-based, neighborhood-based discussion that might get lost in the shuffle. And I think I'm not sure if 800 is a good number or a bad number. I don't know how you label that. I don't know where the numbers come from, but I know that we're struggling. There's apathy and/or feeling of disenfranchisement that has to be behind low numbers at our meetings and low participation, because my personality is amazing, and I should be drawing huge crowds, but we are not.
See what we have to put up with?
I know. But you've already talked about accessibility and the complexity of the issues, but I also think it's about people maybe don't believe that when they check a box that it's making a difference. And I don't know how to bridge that gap, but okay. I sense that that's real. We, even as officers engaged real directly and as close as we can, we sometimes feel like we're just a box that gets checked. And I'm sorry if that is harsh. But I have to pass that along because I believe that that's why we lose involvement. And I don't want to lose track of that. Sorry, on. Howie.
Well, yeah, a lot of what you said resonates. I mean, we've had issues. I mean, getting people to NDA meetings has really been a struggle. And I do think, I mean, obviously the pandemic, and I think there is a lot of apathy and a lot of just people don't have the energy. It takes work. It takes work to get involved. But one of the things I am interested in the survey that that Rebecca and the team put together, there was some information about the neighborhood and contact info, and do you want to get on the mailing list? So I'm going to be, I'm really curious if that's going to help. I've heard a couple of people that came to some meetings, as a result of that. But to get to that, it took a lot of work. It took a lot of pounding the pavement, putting, flyers out, going to local businesses. And I do think that as another elephant in the room here, that's that missing piece of, we can do a great job of getting land use issues in front of the NDA, as difficult as they are. And, I know in the past we've done had a lot of great discussions, and then that's just kind of where it ends until someone in your neighborhood says, "Oh, I didn't know about this thing happening and I don't like it." And, it's a real struggle because the effort, and there's no easy answer, but I do think, obviously the engagement piece, but I also would echo that there are a lot of people who are not going to be satisfied, just using, an online tool. So I think, having that in conjunction with more of the face-to-face stuff, what that looks like, I don't know, but it's a long-running issue with our NDA for sure. But I do feel like that things are, I'm seeing some glimmers, and I'm hoping that it's related to sort of focusing on an issue. I mean, nothing brings people to an NDA meeting like a problem or a big issue. So if we could get that kind of response, not when people are hot about something very specific, I think that's the trick.
Thank you, Howie. I'm going to do a quick time check. We're about 4 minutes to the top of the hour here. And if folks are able and willing to hang on for maybe another 15 minutes, there is at least one other question we'd really like to get your feedback on. So if that's okay with you, I'm going to ask just to hang on, because I think we're really starting to get at something. I'm going to quickly go to Amy and then to Lisa, and then ask Joseph to ask that final question. Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you. So first I want to say hi. I mean, we said hi earlier, but I recognize that I've been chatty with most of all of you online in different forums. So it's nice to kind of see you on Zoom rather than just on Facebook and different places. So I did want to mention that I admin FBG Milwaukee Chit Chat on Facebook. We have 8,500 very active community members who live right here in Milwaukee. That group has been around for 5 or 6 years, so we've had a lot of time to build it. And I wanted to invite any of the NDA groups. If you guys have Facebook pages, your page can join our Facebook group and you can post from your NDA page updates or go live. You can screen share meetings. The city of Milwaukee can do that if they want to, screen share and live share any of these meetings directly into that group. We do tend to get thousands of views, sometimes live and sometimes within 24, 48 hours, thousands of community members will watch those videos and participate in a lot of organic conversation. So a lot of these things that we're talking about right now organically come up. And it's kind of that piece because obviously with COVID and people, and I think, Rich, you did touch on, people just are exhausted and sometimes meeting face-to-face or even on Zoom is a little more tiresome, but like being able to type things out or in that forum can sometimes, people sometimes engage a little bit more, but there's a healthier balance of actually, meeting with people in person. So I'm hopeful that we'll get more of that, sooner rather than later. But any of you are welcome to join that group with your page and promote or share or start discussions or topics in there, or start them on your page or in your smaller group or your neighborhood group and kind of direct people in there to talk about those specific issues in your neighborhoods. So that's a way that we can kind of bring people together and filter things through. And I can also make a document and pin it at the top of group with the Engage Milwaukee link on there and all of the NDA links to either websites or emails or Facebook pages. So I can kind of try and condense one document, and who knows how many people will go to the announcement section, but I can pin that so that people are just a little bit more connected in that way. So if anybody's, welcome to reach out to me. Either through email or if you know me on Facebook, you can DM me that way to let me know if I can help you in any way.
So Amy, you're getting lots of hits in the chat, so maybe check in on the chat if you can and respond to questions, and we'll go to Lisa. I appreciate you speaking up though, Amy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so when our neighborhood has important things, like the last time that I think there were questions about our roadways and which ones had the most safety issues and things like that. SurveyMonkey is what we've used to send out to our email lists, and it's very effective. About 200 people on our email list, which isn't a large group. Then they tell other people in the neighborhood, and we've been able to get feedback and then be able to pinpoint where people think the major safety concerns are. But the best way that we get engagement in our neighborhood is by having activities for people to come out and do and actually get involved and participate in something that they feel strongly about. So we have things like we do at the Tideman Johnson work parties. So we have people come and do work parties eight months out of the year. And even during the pandemic, we've had, it's been relegated. We can only have 10 people, but we have, or 10 to 15, but we have a core group of 10 that always show. And it's because it's something they feel, passionate about. We do work on our terraces. We have another terrace party work party coming up in November here to take care of the terraces on Johnson Creek Boulevard, which is a native planted area next to our Ardenwald Johnson Creek sign. It's just, I guess it's just engaging people who maybe don't feel like they have the time to do a lot of other stuff, but if you happen to be working with them and tell them about something, then they can get involved too. I don't know if that makes sense, but the other thing I would mention about the Engage Milwaukee is you kind of have to remember that people coming from different demographics, a lot of times they feel marginalized in so many ways, and and they feel like they're kind of pinpointed, putting their information in, and be that economic, be that race, be that whatever, it's a real thing. And so I think sometimes that could be part of why you don't get as much engagement on something that's so that gathers all that data. And I know you want the data, but sometimes people are reluctant to engage because of that. So just putting it out there.
Thank you, Lisa. Joseph, would you like to take over?
Sure, thanks, Lauren. So recently, the Planning Commission and City Council worked on revising the Planning Commission bylaws. The updated bylaws are in the packet for this meeting, posted on the web. And those bylaws appointed the Planning Commission as the newly established Community Involvement Advisory Committee, or the CIAC, with a specific focus on land use. So the CIAC will hold time on every commission meeting, if needed, and hold an annual meeting to review and discuss the following topics related to land use: opportunities for widespread public involvement, effective two-way communication with the public, the ability for the public to be involved in all phases of the planning process, making technical information easy to understand, feedback mechanisms for policymakers to respond to public input, and adequate financial support for public involvement efforts. So based on the topics outlined, do you have ideas on how the committee can be most effective?
And I'm just sharing my screen so that you all can see those bullet points that Joseph just brought up. Which is going to mean, in order to see that you're raising your hand, if you just want to go off mute and start the topic, please feel free to.
Can I ask a question? Where did you get the handoff from to take over this? No,
yes.
the new responsibility to be the CIAC. Thank God it's not CIA. Yeah, to see. But where did you take the handoff from? Who had that responsibility before?
It was a charge that was approved through the city council. So the city council gave direction to the planning commission to be this committee.
Is this a brand new responsibility? No one had it before?
That's my question.
Yes,
okay,
that's correct.
Thank you.
And this is also, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, this is also a strongly recommended function from the state through DLCD?
Yes.
So
Pam, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. So would this, I mean, since it's brand new, we would have to look ahead at the packet and then chime in to the Zoom meeting. Is that how that would work? So we would be able to ask questions? I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah, we haven't done it yet. And so I think that what we're going to do is we're going to put it at the very beginning of the planning commission meeting, and they will take off their planning commission hats and they will just be the CIAC. And so if there's anything not specific to what is actually happening on the planning commission agenda that evening, but that is related to these questions, that you see on your screen, that's when you could bring those up to the CIAC, aka Planning Commission.
Okay, so they don't have to be related to the topic at hand that night for the Planning Commission.
They actually probably shouldn't be related to that. That's
Okay.
for a different, you can testify regarding a lot of those things, but yeah, so they wouldn't be necessarily about that.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments, suggestions about this new role for the Planning Commission and really how we can be effective at doing it?
Rich, yes.
I don't know if this is the right forum, and I know we're pressed for time, but I just don't know that I completely understand it. But I think I'm going back to the last conversation about apathy and engagement and understanding. And so when I look at item 4D here, why don't we flip the model? Why don't we ask the developers to be responsible for communicating in very clear terms what their proposal is. And then let's empower my neighbors to all be registered with Engage, and let's have direct democracy. Let's have them vote on Henley Place. Yes or no?
Well, we can't actually legally do that at this point in time, but if we have a whole shift in our paradigm, I think we could do something like that, but that is not the way it works right now. Right now, I think to what Commissioner Sherman was saying earlier, is that there's specific criteria within our code that have to be looked at and analyzed based on the criteria in the code. So it's a little complicated.
So generally I'm put on committees like wild, crazy ideas that never see the light of day. So good, put me on that committee. But understand the spirit of what I'm saying here. If people know that their voice makes a difference and the developer knows that they need to get X number of people in that community to understand and weigh in, and then the box is checked. Not that they had a meeting, not that they shared the information, but genuinely that people understand it. And then you check the box. X number of people from historic Milwaukie can acknowledge that they go ahead, put this in Engage Milwaukie, that they pass a test. They understand the merits and the features of Henley Place or Coho Point, right? And we check the box when we know that a critical mass of people in our neighborhood understand. Then check the box, not just that somebody had a presentation at our meeting.
Got it. Howie, did you want to chime in on that?
Well, I'm just curious from a legal standpoint. I do, we do get occasionally developers will actually take the initiative to go to the NDA meeting and talk about it. Obviously, it doesn't happen all the time, but I am curious if there could be, and I don't know, where the intersection between city code and state law, but requiring that type of, at least making a presentation to the NDA meeting, neighborhood, to the meetings. But taking it one step further, I would be curious legally, but putting a little bit more on developers to, they're great at navigating the city code to get the result that they're looking for. And I think if you put something in the code that did put at least a little bit of the responsibility of engaging with the public there, that's a really interesting idea. And I just, I'm curious how that could work from a legal standpoint.
I don't know that I have the answer to that off the top of my head, but I think that it might be a possibility to request that the developer attend neighborhood association meetings for land use processes that were a type 3 and a type 3 process. But that would be something that we could talk about internally and kind of understand if that's even a possibility, if we can require that. Because I know a lot of them do go to the NDAs and they go several times and really try to talk through the issues with the NDAs, because we encourage them to and are constantly saying you need to go back to the NDA, see what the NDA says before you bring it to the Planning Commission. But requiring that in certain circumstances is at least something we could explore, whether or not it's a possibility or not.
I think what reinforces that too is then when we see NDA representation at testimony. So when there's opportunity for public testimony on any given hearing, if we can hear from someone connected to the NDA, it reinforces to the developers and to future project teams that voice matters. And that you're representing a whole sector of the group in which really the development team has to prove their project is worthy.
I want to say out loud that I know that this is not simple. There's not a silver bullet answer. It's complex. There's a lot of work to be done. But I think it's a worthwhile conversation that we should continue to have and be willing to try some stuff, push the envelope a little bit. It's just really important.
I hear you. Laura, I think it's further conversation to have and to see how far we can push that envelope in terms of requirements, not necessarily recommendations, but what can we do to make that, to push that yet further. And Amy, you had your hand up.
I just want to mention real quick, and this is kind of circling back to our previous conversation about increasing engagement or participation in local NDAs. I think the map is kind of hard to tell what neighborhood you belong to sometimes, because you kind of have to click back and forth and really find your street and stuff. So I think that even if the NDAs on websites or pages or whatever you're building, if you can screenshot and maybe just carve out just your little area or make it a little bit more visually appealing so that people know, oh, there I am, this is where I go, and kind of funnel more people in to their NDAs, that might help kind of increase people's attachment and participation with their local, with their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's 8:13. Does anybody else have any feedback specifically to the CIAC and this new portion of the Planning Commission that responsibility will fill? Lisa?
I just thought of something, and again, this is more time, and I know nobody has. But what if, I know some of our city councils and our legislative individuals for Senate and state legislator have what they call coffee with council, or coffee with citizens or whatnot, and it's just an engagement process where it's a little more low key to engage people on another level. And maybe it could just be one individual from the group to kind of reach out to citizenry and say, we're open, first Saturday of the month, someone will be here if you have questions. It's just an idea of engagement on a one-on-one level. I know we're in a pandemic still right now, but since numbers are going down and things are looking positive, that might be an opportunity to think about doing something like that, to have an actual process and a set time and place. And anyway,
Lisa, and you're referring to that individual who you'd be sitting down to have coffee with. It would be part of the project team, or are you specific?
It could be someone from Planning Commission. It could be someone from staff. It could be someone just willing to engage and answer questions if people had. It's just a thought.
Yeah.
I think we should double the pay of planning commissioner members too.
There you go.
Laura,
doubling zero is still zero.
Yeah. Laura, I just wanted to throw an idea out real quick on the topic of maybe how to help people identify their NDAs. I was just looking on the city GIS map, and when you look at the map and you click on a parcel, it does tell you what neighborhood it's in. But it would be really awesome if instead of saying Ardenwald, it said Ardenwald and was a link to go to the Ardenwald website, and you could just do that for all of those kinds of things. I don't know, if the GIS coordinator has the time or the ability to kind of easily make that kind of update. But I think that would just, again, help people when they go maybe check on their own property, figure out how they can kind of get plugged into the NDA system a little bit easier.
I was looking on mobile, and the view on mobile, I don't think is, were you looking on desktop?
I was looking on desktop, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think mobile is just not as easy to navigate and identify, okay, this is my NDA. So that's kind of just something too.
Laura, I wonder if almost like a happy hour time with staff, almost like a reoccurring opportunity, like office hours almost, where a staff could be on maybe a Zoom call and take any questions and offer that time up to either NDA or anybody from the public, really, to provide feedback or questions about projects.
I think that would just, it's an interesting idea. It's a capacity issue. That's some staff staying extra when they already have multiple night meetings on top of it. So it's just a staffing issue of how frequently we could do that and how that would align with projects. So I'd have to look into that. I can't commit to that, but it's an interesting idea.
Rebecca had mentioned that maybe I could co-host some videos, so I'll open that up. I understand the staff issue, but for the NDAs and for other planning commissioners, I don't mind hosting in our Facebook group, kind of, because that just gives a way to connect to the community, and they already have a lot of very organic conversations. So I'll open that up to.
I just think it's important to distinguish that the Planning Commission cannot have those kind of conversations about active projects.
And not so much, sorry, to clarify, not so much about active projects, but about just kind of how things run or to answer questions. So more kind of on that, you know, like where the NDAs can answer questions about, you know, what they do, and Planning Commission can kind of try and answer what we do. And, you know, and just like if the community has questions, that we can hold, you know, kind of a live talk with the community.
That's right. That's a great idea, Amy. I am seeing that we are now over time. Greg always gets an opportunity in an agenda to discuss other business updates. So is this our commercial, Greg? You're on.
No,
mute.
I was actually raising my hand because I attend my Linwood NDA meetings regularly. And so when there is a question about something that is happening or how planning works, I am there at my NDA. I would like to also encourage my fellow NDA or my fellow planning commissioners to attend your NDA so that they recognize who you are and what it is. I was in on Island Station's NDA, so I go to a lot of these NDA meetings, and most of you, that's how you know me, but I was in on Island Station. They were talking about vacation houses and what are the rules on that. And because we went through that whole process, I don't know, however long it was, 5 years or so ago, I knew what the rules were, right? And we could have that conversation. It's not for a particular thing that was coming up. It was just a conversation about that, or how to point them in the right direction. I mean, I know how to get to municipal code on the city website, which most people don't even know. We probably even had a website full of municipal code. So I encourage all of my planning commissioners to take the time and attend your own NDA meetings so that you can get to know them. And if I am always here, so if anybody wants to have a planning commissioner at their NDA meeting, I'm probably there 2 or 3 times a year begging for money for something else anyways. I'm always more than happy to show up. So open invitation. And for those of you who know me, I'm more than happy to throw a party at my house and invite all of you guys here. So Laura will bring the vodka. I already know that, right? So, and one final word, because Lauren will shut me off because if it goes past 9:15, we're all in trouble. I want to thank you guys, all of the NDA people. I used to be the vice president of the Linwood NDA. I know how difficult it is. I know the challenges. You are a small part of a large community. Sometimes you feel like a small fish in a really big pond, but the work that you do day in and day out to keep your community engaged and to do those little projects that you do, it makes a big difference in the city. And so I want to thank you. I really, really do. The time and dedication. And for you new people that are on, you're replacing people that have been there for 10 years. And it's because we love this city. And that's why we do it. And we love our neighborhoods. And so please, I want to thank you and really keep up the really, really good work. I'm done now, Lauren.
Fine. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate that. I think that's a really good note to go out on. And so with that, Laura, do I really need a motion to adjourn? Okay. So with that, we're just going to close this evening and look forward to updating you on any outcomes from this and staying connected with you the next time we meet. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hey guys.
Thank you. Good night.